My name is Marilyn Van Ostrom, and I am the chairman of the SafeChurch committee. You're watching this video because you are serving in some capacity in our congregation, serving youth or children. Watching this video and reading the policy is part of our church's commitment to keeping our children safe. I want to start by reading the Bible verse that our SafeChurch ministry has chosen as its guiding verse. Ezekiel 34:28. They will live in safety and no one will make them afraid. The vision of SafeChurch ministry is to equip congregations in abuse awareness, prevention, and response. We want to help build our church community as a place where the value of each person is honored, where people are free to worship and grow, free from abuse, and where abuse has occurred, the response is compassion and justice, and to foster healing. If you're watching this video, it means that you have already gone to an in-person training. Today, I'm just going to cover a few high points and also a couple of changes that we've made in the policy. It's my expectation and our church's expectation that you will read the policy, listen to the video, and then submit that you have completed these two things. I'm not going to go over the policy in its entirety, so please read those areas in ministry that are applied to you. The first thing I want to cover is on page 1 of the policy, where it is our responsibility, both spiritually, morally, and legally, to ensure that all reasonable steps have been taken to provide a safe and healthy environment for our children, youth, and vulnerable adults, and for all of the volunteers and staff who work here at Sunnyside Christian Reformed Church. Also, our policy and procedures must be in place for our church to qualify for liability insurance. This policy applies to all volunteers and employees of Sunnyside Christian Reformed Church. It also applies to all church-sponsored activities and programs. On page 1, you will also note under definitions, please read the definition of child abuse and neglect under Washington state law. Also, misconduct. So we have a legal obligation to address abuse and neglect, but as a church, we also have a spiritual and moral obligation to address misconduct, and that involves misuse of power, misuse of spiritual authority, ungodly conduct, sexually inappropriate behavior, and neglect and abuse of office. Those behaviors violate the trust and well-being of people attending and worshiping at our church. On the second page is where we've made a couple of changes that I want to note. So the first thing is that any person in a volunteer position outside of church leadership should be a professing member or have attended Sunday morning worship services for at least 6 months. If you are on a leadership role, the requirement is that you be a professing member for at least 6 months. The second thing that we changed is that we needed to address people who are volunteering to help in our programs who do not attend our church. GEMS, for example, has a couple of leaders who bring their children and want to volunteer. So we have added in our policy that those who do not attend our church must complete a background check just as everyone else does. And then they must provide a reference from the pastor of the church that they are attending, which addresses regular church attendance for at least 6 months, statements addressing faith in Jesus Christ as their personal Savior, and their assessment of the person's abilities and characters regarding working with youth and children. This must be submitted to our pastor and also then to the SafeChurch ministry. The screening policy and procedure happens through our church website. So if you are new to serving in ministry, it is something that people can access easily on our website. Once you have done this, it happens annually. So you do not have to resubmit anything. Our system is set up so on an annual basis, those who are serving are automatically, the background check happens again. Reporting policy and procedure, I wanted to address that briefly. Remember that there are certain professions who are required to they are mandated reporters. Those include people like teachers and nurses, and we are mandated reporters to report within 48 hours. Church staff and volunteers, pastors, are not specifically mentioned in this law, but case studies, meaning legal proceedings, have included them. So we are following that policy, that law, that if you suspect abuse or neglect, it needs to be reported to Child Protective Services within 48 hours. You will have the support of the SafeChurch ministry team with you. If a report does need to be made, we ask that you first contact the leader of your ministry. Hopefully they are there during the time that this occurs. And then we will work with you to submit the report. On our church's website, there's a reporting and tracking document that will track the information that was reported to Child Protective Services. This information needs to be objective, what you were told or what you saw. It is not our responsibility to investigate or to decide whether something is true or not. If there are criminal proceedings, the Safe Church Committee will revisit the persons involved after the criminal proceedings have finalized. Another thing that the Safe Church Ministry has added, which has been in place for a couple years now, is compassionate response for all those involved. That we will work with the victim, we will work with the family involved. We will also ask the council to appoint someone to work with the alleged abuser if that is appropriate. The Safe Church Ministry, their role will be to work with the victim and their family. Under general guidelines, remember that when you're working with children and youth, that gentleness, respect, and understanding must be used in all situations. Discipline, if needed, will be carried out through instruction, training, and correction. Physical punishment should never be used in your role as a teacher or leader or volunteer at Sunnyside Christian Reformed Church. Also remember that displays of affection can convey support and encouragement. Such displays can be misinterpreted. Remember that you should avoid a full body hug. If you want to give someone a hug, the sidearm hug is appropriate. A brief shoulder pat or hug, a hand clasp or a handshake, a light touch to the forearm. Remember that children, youth, and all adults have the right to refuse displays of affection. This should be respected at all times. Back rubs and kisses are inappropriate always. Physical conduct should be age appropriate. Lap sitting is only appropriate for children 5 years and younger. Encourage older children to sit next to you. If you observe a ministry leader or volunteer not following the protection policy, we ask that you utilize the Matthew 18 principle first, meaning you go to that person and let them know what your concern is. If this happens again, we ask that you notify the Safe Church Ministry and we can support you in this. Our Safe Church policy is only as good as when people are following it and using it. We need your help, and that means that you're aware of what's happening around you, that you know what the policy is, and when people are not following it, that you will address it and then bring it to our attention if your concern continues. A couple of things. One thing that's changed since last year also is that on the church's website, there's an annual permission slip to be completed electronically for all children involved in ministry. This year, our ministry leads working with youth have added all of the events that they have planned for the year. So when you sign up when you complete the annual evaluation, all of those events are then okayed. There's also single event permission slips for events that are added or that are not listed. After that, in the policy, it addresses individual ministry areas. So I ask that you read the area that applies to the ministry that you work in. Also in the policy are some numbers that you might find useful for local police departments, child protective services, and also some information about what the symptoms of child abuse and neglect are. Remember, if someone does come to you and tell you something that is concerning, our response should just be, "I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm so glad you told me." Keeping it as simple as that, and then asking for help from others. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you have any questions, please contact me, Marilyn Van Ostrom. My number is 840-4198. Also, the other committee members are Jamie Tobin and Dave Van Dyke. Thank you.